welcome to Magickal Monday.
It's Monday again.
It's Monday again. It's a whole bloody week gone by. What's going on? I have no idea. It's all scary.
No, it's not scary. We have cool stuff planned. In spite of everything, we have cool stuff planned.
I'm just saying it's scary. The freneticism has already gone. And this Mercury retrograde is a complete doozy.
Yep.
We had no video when we powered our rig up this morning. I thought, that's interesting.
That's going to be fun.
You're just going to have a voice from beyond instead. But no, we got it working, so it's all good.
We got it working, and we have another special guest, an author from the UK today.
Indeed.
So let's get to it.
So why don't we? Without further ado, we're going to bring him on screen and tell you all about him. It's the amazing, the one and only legend, Jonathan Argento. So let's see if he's there, shall we?
He's still there.
Hey, Jonathan, we didn't scare you off. Welcome to Magickal Monday. And well, tell us a bit about you. What do you do, sir?
Well, I've worked in education. I've done lots of different jobs, like most people. But currently, I'm simply writing and speaking. So I tend to speak at pagan events, festivals, conferences, and write about pagan-related subjects. I'm also part of a local coven, and I've been mentoring witches for just over 20 years now.
Oh goodness,
that's awesome! That's awesome.
There is a saying. There is a saying, Jonathan. Anybody who would be a high priest or a high priestess must be out of their mind. That's all I'm saying. So it's probably true. So tell us your latest book that we are going to be plugging the bejeebers out of today is called
Sigils for Magic: Techniques for Transformation.
Have you got a copy of it you can hold up? Look at that. As if by magic. Tell us about it. What's a sigil? First thing, for those who know nothing about it, what is a sigil?
A sigil is usually, but not exclusively, a sign or a symbol that is an encapsulated intentional spell. So it can be very simple, and it can be very complex. That's really why I wanted to write about sigils, because sigils are so straightforward and also very, very complex. You can accomplish quite a lot with a sigil. So I've described sigils as a squiggle for success. It can be as straightforward as a doodle, or it can be as complex as a mnemotechnic device.
That's a fancy word, that.
Yeah, I struggle with saying it. I'm not going to say it again. But it's this idea that you encapsulate a whole load of stuff into a tiny process or thing, like a memory stick. You're encapsulating it and paring it down, and then you're releasing it to change things, to bring about change.
So we should have a straw poll, because have we said hello to everybody who's
I'd
joined?
like to do that, but
We'll do that and then ask them who uses sigils in our lot.
All right. So we have Sean, Logan, Gilda, Laura, Wendy. Oh my goodness. Jess.
A few now.
Doris Jean, Nicole, Kimberly, Shayna, and Helena Rose.
God.
So the question is, guys, who has used sigils? And I'd also like to put out there, same as last week, if you want to reserve a copy of Jonathan's book, you have to call the shop.
Do it now. Well, after you've answered the question, do it now. 845-255-5756. Give us a call.
They know. They probably have it on their speed dial.
Speed dial. You gotta love it. Oh, excuse me. Go on. Back to Jonathan.
To sigils.
Sigils.
So, sigils is essentially creating a language, I suppose, in a sense.
Yeah, I think if we look at the origins of sigils, we have to go right back in time to probably the dawn of human consciousness itself.
Wow.
Because it's yeah, so we're talking about a very long time ago. We're talking about kind of prehistory. We're talking we're talking about cave art and the origins of written communication. So most people will be familiar with Paleolithic cave art, you know, these simple or complex drawings of humans hunting bison, antelope, stuff like that. And these were generally considered to be either simply artwork or, I suspect, sympathetic magic. I mean, my money's on the sympathetic magic bit. And then, little over 10 years ago, there was a remarkable discovery that scattered around the edges of these pieces of art were 32 symbols. And these 32 symbols were found thousands of miles apart, the same symbols, and they were in use for a period of over 20,000 years.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
So we're talking about something that is kind of quite mind-boggling. So the woman who discovered that was Guinevere von Persinger, and she's done a TED talk on it called 32 Signs. So if any of your viewers want to catch up with that, it's brilliant. So we have, for the first time that we're aware of as a species, left messages for other people to encode.
Well,
So imagine that you're a small tribal group, maybe a family unit, and you're traveling across unknown territory, and you find a cave to take shelter in, and there you recognize marks that have been previously made by other humans. Now that's going to give you the opportunity to access all sorts of information. It's going to provide you with a sense of security, and it's going to let you know that you're not alone. And so we see that symbolic language is part of what it means to be conscious as a human. And we can fast forward a bit, in fact, quite a further bit, to the idea of hieroglyphics, or literally word shapes of the gods, which would be a definition for hieroglyphic. And so people have always sought to encapsulate ideas and things. Now, I know some hieroglyphics, you know, and stuff like that were traders' notes on how many bushels of wheat people have bought. But the notion that they are called, in some contexts, hieroglyphics gives it a completely different spin. The God-shaped words. And I kind of think that's interesting. And of course, with the passage of time, written word has become developed and understood. And so the power of the written word, when it was made available to people, and for a long time, of course, it wasn't made available to people, it was a preserve of elites, has sparked all sorts of revolutions. We might want to look at the Protestant change within Christianity as a result of reading the Bible for the first time. All those things, statements of faith, statements of nationality, what it means to have rights and responsibilities, have all been written and respected and responded to. So words are intrinsically powerful, and sigils are just a really simple way of encapsulating them. So if we were to fast forward much further forward, we see that things have flipped around. We started off with very simple shapes, which progressed into things like hieroglyphics, that eventually became written language, which sooner or later was accessible written language to ordinary people like us, to an abbreviation of language. So this is quite a modern concept, not just the idea of slang, but of emojis and logos.
Right. So we're coming back to the pictorial language again.
Absolutely. And ask anyone in advertising, a logo is worth 100 words.
Absolutely. Our children today can identify 100 logos and not barely 5 plants. You know.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
what I wanted to just highlight.
Excuse me.
I'm Aquarian, and my mind goes places. And when you said these 32 symbols, it brought me to the filing cabinet of the Kabbalah, because you have the 22 paths and the 10 spheres. So could this be the same understanding of human understanding expressed in another language?
Gosh.
She does that all the time.
I know.
So, I'll
That's
throw in a huge
Trinitarian.
tangent.
No, but I loved it. That's fantastic. But we do understand that you're right. It can be very simple. When we look at the letters C-A-T, we recognize that word cat. But it isn't just that word on the paper. We get an image or an understanding, and even a connection to our own pet. So we see the word cat, and it sets this thing off. It's contained in that example that's written. So I understand what you're saying. It makes the concept of understanding a sigil can be very simple, and that it's programmed or understood or connects the seer to that vision that connects that vision to the universe.
Absolutely. So right from the earliest age, the smallest child recognizes initially its parents, and it recognizes the facial expression of its parents.
Right.
And then in order for that child to progress in life, they have to read expressions the whole time. They have to work out, is this person friendly? Is this person dangerous? Is this teacher about to shout at me, or did they actually like my homework? Does this person fancy me, or am I barking up the wrong tree? And the whole of life is we're kind of reading subliminal images.
Mm-hmm.
Even down to obviously driving down a road or a highway, we see the signs and hopefully we respond to them without ever really noticing we're doing it. It becomes quite an unconscious response. And that's where the power of logos come in. Any child going down a street and seeing the McDonald's golden arches knows that golden M means an awful lot to them, that they either would never go there or they want to go there. Yeah, precisely. I appreciate that, there's a family watershed at the moment, so I'm keeping my views quite toned down.
Discretion is always the better part of valor, I have to say.
Yeah, that's what my partner said to me. Yeah. Just to make sure I behave myself. So we have all this information that we just retrieve and respond to. And the idea of a sigil is that you pack information in and then send it out. Very, very straightforward. Pack it in, send it out. And maybe we'll talk a bit later about the processes of doing that. But I think it's important for me to distinguish between how people have understood sigils historically and how maybe our understanding has changed. So if you go back to the timeline that I said about the 32 signs, the hieroglyphics, I could have also mentioned coats of arms and royal seals, which are again like sigils giving authority, all those things. When the written language became available to people, we developed good linguistic manners. Or in other words, we had to speak proper and we had to spell proper in order to be considered articulate and intelligent. Now, as someone from an educational background, I appreciate that's considerably harder for a child who's dyslexic than it is for someone who's not. And so that's not a particularly level playing field at all. But it does highlight the solidifying effect of a right way of doing things. You spell this word like this and use it in this context. And that idea was carried through not just in everyday language, but in magical societies. These societies that developed in the 18th, 19th centuries, ostensibly most of them trying to reclaim origins that were much older than themselves. So you come across a grimoire and you claim it was your own, and you say you're the long line of unbroken tradition in this particular magical society. And for some people that was really helpful. Generally they were affluent, white, heterosexual men. So it probably wasn't much good for people who weren't that. But I'm just going to get off my soapbox now and move on a little bit further to say that under that conceptualization of magic, if you copied a historic sigil or seal, and you didn't put the right I in the right place, or you didn't cross the T in the right place, or you basically miscopied the sigil, it was completely invalidated. In fact, it could be quite dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And an interesting thing happened through a man called Austin Osman Spare.
Oh, we know him.
Who was a fascinating guy. Seemed to live his life in reverse. He was super famous as a child, and then got more and more obscure the older he got. I think he really needs to turn that one around, because bless him, when he died, he was penniless, and he was quite a prominent artist. But Spare is absolutely fantastic on lots of things. Great artist, interesting bohemian lifestyle, but more than anything else, he said that grimoire grammatical perfection is not necessary. My words, but I'm summarizing him. I hope he'll forgive me for doing that. So this idea of having to do things a particular way as it was in the grimoire, and if you messed it up, you invalidated what you did, he said it was nonsense. You don't have to do it like that. You should draw upon everything that you have experience of. Now that's kind of quite an interesting idea, because we will have similar experiences, but we'll also have quite unique experiences. And that some things we will associate as being positive and others as negative. It's kind of how we're wired. And it seems to me that Spare was kind of implying that you should create your own sigils. I mean, he wasn't just implying that, he was saying that. And that you should create your own alphabet of desire. So you could come up with a whole sigilized alphabet to describe your experiences and to turn your experience. Because magic is always the art of change.
Yes.
If we don't want change, we'll never work magic. And change is a fairly straightforward process. I used to say to kids, do actions have consequences? And they say, yes, sir. Can we change our actions to change our consequences? Yes, sir. And that basically is magic. It's changing our actions to get a different set of outcomes. And I think Spare was genius in that, probably far more so than he was ever given credit for at the time. And this idea of sigils then gets picked up 20 years after his death by kind of post-Wiccan game-playing weirdos. Probably depending but
Liber Chaos. Liber Chaos is born, yes.
Yeah. And it's kind of quite weird reading the early stuff, because you can see there's something really going on here. I'm not too sure that Spare would necessarily approve of everything that came out of chaos magic, but it certainly has taken the notion of sigils and individualistic sigil casting right through the kind of post-punk generation into where we're at now. And so I always say that two things have influenced my magical practice: witchcraft and punk rock. And that sigil, in equal measure. And that as a magician, I'm always going to favour 3 chords. There might be 3 power chords, but I'm not going to get it too complicated. I do want it loud and thrashy and I do want it to move me. So that kind of has influenced the direction in which my own magical life has gone. And I have a huge respect for lots of magical societies, but I ain't never going to join most of them, just because that's kind of not where I'm. And I can blame spare punk rock and chaos magic for at least some of that.
I love it. I love it.
Said,
I love it. So we can thrash an open E and that's
Right.
make it all work.
Yes. Chaos magic. I've always found I'm dancing as fast as I can anyway. I don't tiptoe in that space too often.
Just throw it all into the wind. What's the worst that could happen? Eh?
Can't dance any quicker.
Obviously, we have to temper everything with being authentic to ourselves too.
Right.
And obviously, my background is initiatory witchcraft. And I'm very grateful for all the training I had in that, all the different things I learnt, and all the things that challenged me through that. It's like, so why and how? So for me, it's a combination of all those things that kind of led me to write a book on sigil magic. Not least of all because anyone can cast a sigil. Doesn't require a belief system.
Right.
You could be
just a belief in the sigil.
atheist. Absolutely. In fact, an observation of the sigil would be even better. You don't actually even have to believe in the sigil. You just have to observe it at work.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
So, no, absolutely. I think belief is a complex word. So it's one I try and avoid, simply because, well, you say, I believe this, and so, I believe that too, and you realise they don't. You're talking about completely different things. So it's a loaded word. Anyway,
well, no,
what
when you said you don't have to believe in anything to make a sigil, I was trying to say, but you do want to believe that the sigil's going to work, because if you go into it intending that it's not, why are you even bothering?
Yeah, it's like Luke on Dagobah, isn't it? I don't believe it, as the ex-fighter gets pulled out of the waters. That is why you fail. That's it.
Yeah,
you must have some.
I think too, there's a wonderful paradox in magic, and when people are first, wanting to learn about magic and stuff, so you have to understand that magic is a paradox. If you can't hold different ideas in tension, it won't make any sense to you, because some of it doesn't make sense in the first place. It requires a level of acceptance. And so, oh God, something strange. I've completely forgotten what I was saying. What was I talking about?
I think you were talking about sigils.
Yeah, oh good.
Austin,
yeah, definitely about
Austin
sigils.
Osmond Spare.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Punk rock sigils, particularly, yeah.
Yeah, of course. So, and I think sometimes the paradox with sigils, I've remembered what I was going to say now, is whilst you want a really clear intention, the desire for the success of the sigil can sometimes prevent you from achieving it.
I hear what you're saying there.
So it's a you kind of, whilst you want something, you want to put that intention into your sigil and then let go of it. Not 2 days later go, has it happened yet? Why hasn't it happened yet? When's it going to happen? And there is an obvious difference, for example, between a sigil and a wish board or dream board, where people put pictures up of the things they want, and they look at it every day, and they have an affirmation about having those things. And that's great. If that works for people, fill your boots. But most of the sigils I work with are wash and go. You set them up and you let them go, and you don't think about them. Now, obviously, that's not the only way to do sigils, and I am surrounded by sigils in our apartment that I haven't done that with. But I think the wash and go sigil is the easiest one for people to get their heads around.
I hear you, and I wanted to just to come back to the point is, because I don't know. I mean, for me, science magic exactly the same thing, except science seeks to maybe explain the mechanism without necessarily utilizing the effect, whereas magic simply seeks to utilize the effect without bothering to explain the mechanism. So we don't need to understand exactly how things work, and there are a lot of things I think which are way beyond the constructs of our understanding. We simply can't grok it. But we do have a propensity to get in our own way sometimes.
Block ourselves.
And
yeah.
block ourselves. It's like when we tell people, if you're making an affirmation, take the words want and need out of it. Because your focus is on your lack. Your focus is on your want. Your focus is on your need, not the resolution thereof. And that, I think, is the energy which we instinctively draw to ourselves, you know. How long must we wait? Well, until waiting is done. I don't get it. Well, yes, of course you don't get it. You know, it's like the very fact that you are waiting means that you have created the atmosphere of lack and desire and unfulfillment. You know, so stop it and it'll happen, kind of thing. It's weird like that. I know, but I think am I paraphrasing you wrong, or is that what you were kind of trying to say there?
No, I'm going to stop writing books and I'm going to let you do it because that was perfect.
You're too kind. You're too kind. You're buttering up my ego. Please don't do that. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I'm talking about.
All right. So
it's pretty.
Sorry. I have a person saying, is this what your book is going to talk about? Empower us to make our sigils.
Yeah, so the book has lots of chapters. I'm just going to read some chapter headings out to give
Sounds
people an idea. So there's an introduction, Little Squiggles for Success, which talks about your first ever sigil. Now, I know that pretty much everyone has used a sigil at one particular time in their life. And it's often at a very early age. So I want you to cast your mind. I'd be interested in your response to this, guys. I want you to cast your minds back to maybe you're 10, 11, and you're in school and you've got a crush on someone in your class. And this crush won't go away. And so instead of concentrating on algebra or whatever it is you're supposed to be doing, you daydream. And as you daydream, you randomly doodle a love heart in your book. Now, that is the most perfect sigil, because you're not even really aware you're creating it. You have this sense of, I have this need or I have this desire, and I'm going to try and manifest it just through squiggling. Now, it doesn't always work out that way, as most of us can testify, but that's what you captured the origins of a simple sigil through that process. So then I look at Austin Spare, Monograms of Thought, how the ideas for sigils develop. And then I've got a whole load of different techniques. So creating sigils at the seashore, which is a particular favorite of mine. It's a magical place to work sigils. And there's some very easy things you can do with sigils if you're at a seashore or by the side of a lake, something like that. I'm not going to tell you too much about that because I want you to buy my book. I've got a chapter on sonorous sorcery, because a sigil can be a sound. And sounds are really important to us, and there are lots of similar sounds across the globe that all carry a similar meaning or convey or produce a similar response. Yes, I like that chapter a lot. I've kind of looked at how we can use sigils as mantras and chants, which is a different way of doing sigils. Some people that's easier for them. I've got a chapter on dot to dot Sudoku, or in fact working with cameos and magic squares. And Yeah, wondering what was coming there. That's it. So working with these astrological squares and employing the energy of certain planetary forms into your sigil. So you're already working from a position of strength because you've worked out which planet you're going to work with. Now, it sounds complicated, is a little bit complicated. Again, so you have to read the book. I've got a chapter entitled Money Sigils.
Or perhaps, you might agree to do a Zoom class. We'll talk about that.
That is always possible.
I love the way she just talks you into everything, isn't it? Here, sign here, please.
you must have spotted this, Anton. There's that pulls her head up, looks you square in the eyes. There's the faintest hint of a smile, a nice smile, but also a knowing smile. It works. Can I say? So I've got a chapter on money sigils. Can you make cash from chaos magic? Which is something that from time to time people always ask me. Do you have a sigil that will make me some money? Yeah, I do. But there are some factors you need to take into consideration first before you start casting sigils. I've got sigils for protection, a chapter on ethics of intention in magic, why you'll never get something if you don't believe you're entitled to it. I've got a chapter on different techniques. So the book has about 8 or 9 different sigil processes.
Wow.
And some of them overlap, so you can overlay them and you can mix and match them. I think modern sigil magic is like a bricolage. You mash up lots of different ideas. So you can use seals from high magic. You can use a logo from a cartoon character or a computer game, if that speaks to you. Essentially, there are no rules and nothing is off limit. So that's my kind of punk rock bias. Yeah.
I love it.
I've got a chapter on how magic works, and actually, does it matter? Because it does. I've got a chapter on using sigils as portals. So for entering different space, or for hedge crossing. I know you were talking about that with Rachel Patterson. Who's great, by the way, huge fan of Rachel Patterson. Speaks at my conference every year. She's lovely. I've got she is. No, she's one of the nicest people. I want to say in the profession, but that sounds wrong. But you know what I mean. She is
right.
Just,
yeah.
Yeah, and I think I possibly misjudged her the first time I met her. I thought she was very nice. And she is, but she's also not to be messed with, and I love that in her. She's a very strong character.
I can identify.
So that's another tenner you owe me, Rachel. Okay, so and then sigils for trance, how to step into a sigil and use it for trance work. Sigils at crossroads. I love working at crossroads, whether they're the crossroads we create when we cast a circle and we delineate space and we stand in the middle, whether we go to a physical crossroads, provided they've not become roundabouts or busy junctions. Many roads have quite dangerous doing that. And then a chapter on sigils as sentient beings. And if you like, the extent of from a simple sigil to a complex sigil is the creation of an entity itself that has a mandate to get a particular job done. So it can go from a sigil to a servitor to an egregore. And the last chapter is on one that I thought lots of people as a social movement sigil. And so I'm hoping that in the book I've given people lots of how to results magic that they can make work for themselves. But also this idea that if we're constantly just working magic for ourselves, it becomes a little self-indulgent. And there's possibly a greater element to magic in terms of bringing about social change and transformation. And so my money is on the latter. I'm happy to do the former, and sometimes that's what we need to do to stay afloat in life.
Power to the people,
So-
Age of Aquarius. I said power to the people, Age of Aquarius. Can you back up just a little bit? Because
sure.
there was I'm not saying that people didn't understand those words, but could you go back a little bit where you said it can go from a servitor to an egregore? Can you talk a little bit or
Okay.
repeat
Yeah.
that?
I'll give you the example from the book, because I think that's probably the most helpful one I've got.
Cool. Thank you.
So I like lots of people in kind of around 2013, 14, I was becoming increasingly disillusioned by the media and like everything, because it just wasn't presenting the things that I was talking about with people. The topic of conversation did not reach the media. And that was primarily to do with the environment and the impact that humanity was having upon the environment. And as a pagan, that was a valuable and is a valuable thing to me. I understand that I have to share space with lots of other beings, most of which aren't human. And that to be fully human is to fully recognize that, because humans don't exist in isolation to everything else. We're part of a network of life. And I was very much aware that the media was not talking about climate change, and it needed to. And I was also very much aware that we were entering a particularly unpleasant age where if you were poor, it was your fault. If you're on benefits, well, that's because you had a rubbish life and you couldn't manage your money. So I thought a lot about creating a sigil called the Leveller. And that the Levellers, you may or may not be aware of, were a social movement, I think in the 17th century. And they tore down fences and hedges to reclaim land. It was a land movement that decided it would take commoners' land back from landowners. So they're kind of quite interesting folk hero, kind of Robin Hood type characters. And they had a movement called the Leveller, or the Leveller movement. So I took the word Leveller and I condensed it down. I took out the vowels and repeat letters, which is one of the techniques I put into the book, until I was left with the letters L, V, R. And then by playing around with those, I got a shape, which is a good thing to do when you're creating a sigil, because you want to take it to a different level or create a different image. And as I looked at the image, it appeared, I wonder if I could show you, it should be so much easier. Let's see, have we got one here?
The phone's been ringing and ringing. I'm sure people are getting the book. Oh.
So I don't know if you can see it there. So that was the shape I got, which, as you can see, resembles a bridge or a suspension bridge. Now, one of the things you find when you create a sigil is that it takes on a bit of a life of its own. And I realised there was a reason why the Leveller sigil looked like a bridge, because that's where we were to place the sigils. So, cut a long story short, most of the people I worked with then set out to chalk on bridges the Leveller sigil, to mark the space so that the Leveller could become more prominent in people's understanding. And the Leveller sigil went on bridges because bridges cross liminal space. They're always places of movement. Doesn't matter if it's water flowing or trains or cars or whatever, you've got fluid motion taking place. In fact, my mate Vicky Bramshaw put the Leveller sigil on an old New Forest pony track over a tiny little stream in the middle of the New Forest. We put them on big bridges right way along the south coast, motorway bridges. I nearly fell into the sea, slipping, doing one, sort of climbing up the gantry at a short one. It was a lot of fun because magic should be fun. It was a little bit scary too, and of course that is equally true of magic. It should have equal measures, I think, of fun and scariness. It's good for us. And the idea was that once we had marked space, we would ask for the sigil to change. So this is where we're getting into the servitor stage. And that we needed the leveler sigil to start taking a bit of responsibility for the way in which the media covered certain stories and the images it presented. And it was there the bridge came in again, because in European folklore, there's always something that lives under a bridge. It's a troll. So the troll that lived under the bridge was going to charge a toll. It was going to hike all the energy off the passing objects, water, cars, trains, whatever, and put it into the sigil, and simultaneously act as a midwife. It's a bizarre image, but I guess that's how magic works. So this troll under the bridge became a midwife to help birth the next stage of the leveler. So the leveler then grew through that process until it was given free rein to insist, in whatever way it saw fit, that environmental degradation and political double-mindedness that was drawing people away from things should be brought into sharp focus. And I remember people saying, Jonathan, how will we know it's happened? I have no idea. You know, this is not something that I have a book on. You know, I hadn't written a book then. I was just practicing. And within about 9 months of that process, there were a couple of significant features across the world. One was a Swedish schoolgirl started a strike, and the other is a group of academics, intellectuals, and what's not commonly known, magicians, created a social protest movement using an hourglass sigil as their logo. So that was all within that time frame. So I'm not claiming that the leveler sigil was solely responsible for any of those things. That would be an outrageous claim, because I think magic is more complex than that. And so I describe it in the book as being like a murmuration. Now, this time of year, we get murmurations of starlings. Yeah, they fly around and they take incredible shape, and they all seem to join up. They kind of gather. But a murmuration also means the gathering of disgruntled voices, people who are not happy with how things are being run and done. And so for me, that encompasses the leveler. Now, what the leveler is doing now, I'm not sure. I do have some questions in some places, but by and large, you know, without going off piste, that's how you develop a sigil, from a sigil to a servitor to an egregore.
What a cracking
More details are in the book.
In the book, buy the book. If you haven't called
no, they've been calling.
Oh, they've been calling reserving.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the good news is Jonathan will actually do you a book plate. We talked him into it. So as with Rachel's book, you can get a book plate for your book when they come in, and we'll let Jonathan know how many. So
right. So
snag your copy now.
yeah, I think we only have 10 copies coming.
Oh, we probably sold out. Sorry. Go on.
Okay. More will be available, I hope.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, no, we'll get a second batch if we run out. So those are a very second branch of the Mabinogi words. You know, Bran says if you must be a leader, you must first be a bridge, and then the starlings, the murmurations, search for Branwen. So that speaks very clearly to our little group.
Sign of the Times, the second branch of the Mabinogi.
Yeah.
Avo ben byd bont.
Yeah.
Yes, he would be a leader, must first be a bridge. I think that's such a thing. We've been talking a lot lately, Lisa and I, about the liminal spaces, and the liminal is where all possibility resides. You haven't defined it yet. It's, you know, what defines the shore? Is it the sea? Is it the land? You know, it's neither one nor the other, but it's both. And it's kind of that
Absolutely.
infinite possibility, which is fantastic. So yeah. I love it. I'm really looking forward to reading your book.
I do think the seashell's a great place to go. I was doing a ritual the other weekend, and we spent a good hour just down on the seashore beforehand, and it was dusk, and the tide had gone out, And it just wasn't possible quite to work out where one thing began and the other ended. You know, the sky, the sea, the land, and there were birds flying overhead, and no one else was there, which is absolutely fantastic. Very, very liminal, and a perfect precursor to going and doing a ritual. Because we'd already kind of travelled into several lands before we actually got round to doing a slightly more formal ritual. It was just beautiful.
Yeah, no, that sounds lovely.
So my apologies to your listeners if they don't live anywhere near to the sea.
There are plenty liminal spaces everywhere. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's that which is just beyond the edge of your perception. I think the liminal. You know, it could be the margin of a forest and a field. It could. It's dusk, dawn. You know, these times are liminal times. You know, they're beautiful. Have we got loads of questions? Has anybody got questions? Because
somebody was saying, is it a good idea to put sigils underneath your wall paint?
Simple answer: yes. There's I've done it every time I decorate a house. Now, obviously, key tip here: don't use a big black ink marker and then try and paint the wall white. It's not going to work, is it?
Right.
Another thing: when I was at university, I put sigils on every page of my dissertations.
Ooh.
And you can do that quite subtly. You can put it into the text and then fade out the colour, or you can work it into the pagination or the numbers on the page. You like a sigil buried in that.
Right.
So my apologies to lecturers. Sorry.
So the satellite delay gets you every time, doesn't it?
No, I was saying, but back what you were saying before is sometimes the idea of a sigil is set it and forget it. And then other times it's to see it again for reinforcement. So there's kind of those two different ideas.
Yeah, there's lots of data. It kind of depends how your brain is wired. And we are all different. I mean, we do share commonalities and we do share certain similar paradigms in whether we respond more to visual things or to written things and to feeling things. And so I think with sigils, it's useful to find out your preferred method, but then to do one you don't like doing. Because sometimes the thing that we don't like doing, we're actually quite good at.
Aha! Yes. Challenge. Challenge is good for the soul.
Yes, if it jars you, you must focus on that.
Not in the first instance, but yeah, I've got one where I put it. I've got a sigil. You can't see it now. So this is a very simple tea light, and it's dried now. But underneath it, I wonder if I can.
Never worked with
Did
children
you like that?
animals.
I know, yeah, actually, you'd have thought by now I'd have worked that one out. Okay, so what happens, you take your tea light, take it out of the aluminium foil, draw a sigil, create a sigil, put it on a piece of paper, the bottom between the candle and the metal, and then as you light the candle, obviously it becomes transparent and it reveals the sigil. So I had a little sigil here, which was for communication for this broadcast. It will go smoothly.
Seems to have worked so far.
We've done all right, haven't we? Not bad at all.
Not mad at all. No, and we are fighting. I know that some people are into astrology and some aren't, but this Mercury retrograde that we've been feeling coming in for the last couple of weeks, today we have Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius.
Oh no, run away.
So that's like higher communication, higher education, and long distance travel. And Mercury is the planet of travel and communication. And it's opposing Jupiter in Gemini. So Jupiter is in Mercury's sign of Gemini, and Jupiter likes to expand whatever comes its way, good or bad. So this Mercury retrograde, I think, is really going to create miscommunication, screw-ups with technology that has to do with communications, like computers, air traffic, short distance, long distance travel. I think if people are going somewhere for the Thanksgiving holiday here in the U.S., they need to have an alternate plan B for getting home.
Yes, you may be enjoying Thanksgiving at the Holiday Inn or somewhere.
Yeah, no, I think that things are going to get a bit bizarre over these next couple of weeks. And I'll talk more about the astrology another time. I just want people to be mindful that you may not be heard for what you're really saying at this point.
Misconstrued.
Right,
yeah.
so there's this, well, here's this, what I want to say. And the other person's going like, that does not compute.
No. So what you're saying is, no, I'm not.
All right.
It's I love it, Jonathan. This is awesome. I have learned so much just chatting with you. So interesting. I had no idea. I actually did paleoanthropology at school a long time ago, and I remember the sort of the cave paintings. But this was made long before. Say it was only 10 years ago that they discovered this, and they've wow, that's yeah. I want to know more about that. I'm into Neolithic monuments and stuff.
Yeah, do check out, because I'm convinced this is the first of many discoveries.
Oh yeah.
That will go, but hang on, we're constantly revising the origins of human consciousness and the origins of humanity, and yet we still seem to persist in heading in a direction that is completely unhuman,
lunatic.
Or inhuman.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because you were talking about the planet, and we're the only species on the planet hell-bent on destroying the planet.
It's a pet peeve of ours, Jonathan. We're desperate to try and get people to understand that you can make a difference and it is not too late. And, even the tiniest little things, just a change in attitude is all that it takes. So many people just see a forest as how many board feet of lumber can I get out of this? Not, that if only they're like the lungs of the earth and they're sentient beings cognizant of our presence, It's just, we're so stupid sometimes, actively trying to destroy that which sustains us. It's kind of crazy.
Right. So several people have said they've called the shop and ordered the book.
Awesome.
Lisette says that is a great example using something as simple as a tea light.
Yeah.
Savannah says, I draw on my candles all the time. This is a great idea. And Doris Jean says, thank you so much, Jonathan. You've made sigils seem more attainable. I'm very excited to read the book.
Oh, bless you. Thanks, guys.
Well, no, it's definitely, you are somebody I would describe as he knows his onions. Oh. He knows his onions, he do.
I want to have a giant gathering and have all of us in one space and just let us put the world to rights.
Create havoc.
Right?
It's like herding cats.
Okay, just don't tell everyone we're doing it, because they'll never let it happen.
All right.
It just happens by itself. Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah,
I just want to shout out to our crowd. We woke our Mary a week ago on Friday, our Mary Lloyd, and we did our very first wassail with it. It's the first year we've actually had a real Mary Lloyd, and we took her out to Bad Seed Cider, and we had a ruckus of a time. It was fantastic and beautiful, and that's an old tradition that's now made it here. So that's the first, and we'll do it every year, I hope.
Okay, I don't know why you brought it up.
I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who's watching who was there.
Oh, who was there? Gotcha, okay.
I know a whole boatload of them were, so right. I recognise them names.
I see this, I see. All right. And yes, Jonathan, thank you so much. if you are interested in doing a workshop at some point, we have in our church, we call it a church, but it's where we hold ritual. It's a fellowship. We have a large screen TV, and we can line the seats up like an auditorium. So the speaker can come in and teach a class kind of like we see you today, but we see you life size. And then we can pay you via PayPal or the method of your choice.
It's all good.
Will there be popcorn?
If you want popcorn, but I don't know how to deliver it virtually, so you probably need your own.
We used to do something called Pagan Movie Night, where we did have popcorn.
Somebody had a popcorn machine once. They did, I remember it.
So interesting. I can't wait to learn. A workshop would be amazing. Yes, please. Thank you so much for sharing this wisdom with us. All kinds of good feedback. And I must pull a card of the week.
Oh, yes, because times get... Oh, and what a good one. Speaking of...
So, card of the week. Anytime we see a moon on a card, we know changes are happening. And she has a lot of knowledge to share, but she doesn't just share it unless you work for it. So it is going to be a very interesting...
You want me to say 2 cents on this?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's so wise, the High Priestess here. She realizes that the concept of spirituality is far too big to fit into one religion, so she embraces a lot of them there. But it's all about having the right questions and being open to the flow of inspiration. So it's a good time to learn this week. It is a good time. And sometimes what appear to be challenges and things that frustrate you may be perfect learning opportunities. So embrace the lesson, learn the lesson. Don't bury your head in the sand. This is how we grow. This is how we grow.
Got a ton of whoops and yeses for
whoops
a workshop.
And popcorn machines.
And Jess says she has a popcorn machine.
Of course you do, Jess. So Jess will be providing popcorn. That's fantastic. I love it.
Oh gosh, thank you so very much.
We are so privileged to be able to have you on our show. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us, Jonathan. That was really educational. I loved it. And you're a great speaker. You really are. Have you ever considered doing public speaking?
Yeah. Do you know what? Might give that a go. Yeah, I have to say, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really, really appreciate what you're doing. Had a look round on some of your posts and stuff like that. Caught a bit of the Merry event at the weekend. So well done. It's not easy running stuff. We know that. So thank you. Well done. And thanks for inviting me.
Oh, thank you for coming.
And hopefully we'll do some YouTube.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, you're beyond welcome.
We will hatch some plans.
Stay tuned for some thrilling things. So thank you, Jonathan, and it's time for us to call it quits and knock it on the head for another week. We've no idea what's happening next week. We might have a plan, but we don't know.
We have somebody, don't worry.
We have somebody. We will have somebody. But there you go. Thank you, Jonathan, all the way from you're not just south of the New Forest, are you? Somewhere like that in Hampshire, aren't you? If I recall correctly.
Yeah, I'm the other side of the Downs from Rachel Patterson. So she's down in Portsmouth. I'm up on the edge of East Hampshire. She's obviously not aware that global warming will cause Portsmouth to disappear quite soon, whereas I've got the hills. I'm kidding. Sorry, Rachel. Just joking. But, we're quite close. Yeah. So sort of Hampshire area, lots of common stuff.
Love it.
Cool. Everybody's saying thank you, Jonathan. We're so much looking forward to your book. Everybody have a lovely day. Have a lovely week. We're really enjoying this series of authors and books. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was great. Much to be thankful for.
So there you go. Everybody's happy and thankful, and that should be, because this is Thanksgiving. And we do have some Serenity Now candles if you need them.
Oh, yes. We do special pours each month, and this month we did Serenity Now, so
Serenity
you can
Now!
Deal with your family.
Woosah, we all tug our ears and try and calm down. All right, it's time for
All
us to
right.
go. Can you punch the end stream button and we'll
you.
say goodbye?
Thank you, everybody.
And-
Peace and blessings. We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Have a nice one. Bye.
Bye.
All right, we're clear now. We're